We are now learning police across the state of Maine knew of the man suspected of killing 18 people and injuring 13 others at a bowling alley and a bar and grill. Last month, police across the state were alerted to threats by Robert Card to both his base and other soldiers. Police then patrolled his home for 2 weeks, but he never showed up. Joining me now, Dreeke, retired FBI special agent and head of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program. Thank you for being here. What should have happened knowing that there was a threat?
Marni, that's a really great question that everyone's asking today, because we have all these red flags that everyone's saying went up. And when we don't clearly know who's responsible, that to me shows the first problem is that there was no clear handoff of leadership in this. So each, like the base commander, when they committed him for involuntarily for 2 weeks, that showed good leadership, but then no follow-up afterwards. It goes hands off to law enforcement, who then does a welfare check with no follow-up afterwards. So I think what we have here is a lack of follow-up and leadership from the top, from someone claiming responsibility that needed to filter on down and continue to follow up when they couldn't find this individual.
The other thing that's being talked about is Maine's yellow flag law. Robert Card should not have been able to have firearms, correct, according to Maine's law?
Yeah, and I think that's part of the follow-up. Some of the challenges that you're seeing in this case in particular is laws generally don't follow what they should follow in cases like this, obviously. And also, law enforcement tends to be organizations, especially when it's based on limited resources, to be more reactive than proactive. Those red flag and yellow flag laws really need, there's a proactive measure for someone that is displaying mental health challenges, as clearly was evident here. And when you have nothing that's really in place for follow-up when it comes to leadership and all these other things that culminated in this horrendous event, that was the problem.
Robin, in your mind, what was the military's role? What role do they have in this situation, first and foremost, to communicate what they know with local police?
They did a really good job, I think, up at West Point when he's on his reserve training up there, to involuntarily committing him for 2 weeks, which was a great sign of someone taking charge and leading when someone displayed threats against other soldiers and threats against himself possibly, but whatever it was, they involuntarily committed him. The release of him afterwards should have triggered that. It goes into the national system. So the FBI is alerted, locals are alerted, the state police was alerted, and they sent out bulletins across all law enforcement. But then there was a lack of follow-up after that. So I think the military did a good job at the forefront. But again, what we're seeing is a lack of follow-up after that was sent off. Who was in charge? Because that's what we're still asking that question today, is who was in charge of following up and being responsible and accountable for what happens next?
So would it be local police? Would it be local sheriff, the jurisdiction where he lived when they tried to find him at his home?
Yeah, again, it's a great question. When we don't know the answer, it means it's not clear. And we really need to establish, especially when it comes to mental health challenges like this, it is a collaborative team effort. There needs to be a single point of success in all these cases. And when we can't clearly identify one and have a clear transfer, if it's going to be from one organization to another, who's that ultimate responsible person and individual that will claim that responsibility? And when it's muddled like this, we need a new system in place.
And depending on who that is, would part of the process be contacting those who are closest to the shooter in this case, so friends or family, if you can't find him?
You would think so. That's what kind of gave me that thought of reactive versus proactive in law enforcement in these situations. So take it on the flip side. We're doing a proactive case here where someone's offering threats against others. And in this case, it ended in a horrific death. But if it had been reactive, if they thought about it reactively, they would be interviewing people. They would be on a manhunt consecutively. I mean, we think about the escaped convicts that get out and the resources that come to bear. Look at the resources they put in place to find him after the fact. If those things had been put in place beforehand, this might not have ever happened. But the challenge here, again, is resources and manpower when we do these things.
Right, and lessons learned in each of these tragic cases. Finally, Robin, might the families of the victims take legal action? Do they have the grounds to do so based on what we know so far?
We're in a country that tends to do that, and there's going to be a lot of pain that these families are obviously going through. They'll never be over it, and legal action, it's up to them and their lawyers. But yeah, can imagine that there will definitely be legal action. But again, who are you going to go after? Because I think there's a lot of people that are pointing figures in other directions.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.